travel much, although we did go to see my aunt in Illinois. We took the train. We were able to do that. We used to go, the train tracks ran across our street, and we used to go up every night, my dad and I, in the summer, and wave at all the guys who were on the trains because they were headed to fight. So we saw them.
Wow. Did you take the train much?
We took the train up to Detroit when I was 3 to visit my grandparents. And that's the only time I ever saw my grandmother. She had MS, and so she was not doing very well. She was in bed, as I recall. I remember seeing her, and she was in bed, and I was kind of scared of her at first. But then my dad was with me. It was his mother, and so apparently Aunt Nancy told me that later on I became great friends with Grandma, and I used to love to go sit on the bed with her and talk to her. I remember doing that. And then we went to see Aunt Betty. You'll remember Aunt Betty. And she was one of my mother's sisters. Her husband was away too. He was fighting as well.
And those were the ones that talked about growing up in Hungary? Was it? No.
No, my grandparents.
It was your mom's side, not your dad's.
That was my mom's side, but that was my mom's side of all those brothers who were fighting in the war. So, and my Uncle Danny came home from the war, one of the brothers, and he had mental problems. He never really was able to adjust to things. He'd get well, and then he'd slip again, and then he would be writing letters to congressmen and telling them he was going to get them or something. I don't know what he was telling them, but anyhow, then the police would come and get him and take him and put him in a mental hospital. He would be there for about a year, and then he would get better again, and then they'd let him back out. But during the war, he had gone overseas, of course, and left his wife, who was pregnant. And she and the baby didn't make it. They both died.
Gosh.
At least that's what I'm told. I don't know. I think it's probably accurate that he didn't make it either, or she, whatever it was. But he wasn't there when that happened.
Wow, that's really rough.
Fighting with Patton in France. And so I'm sure it was a huge shock to him.
Oh, goodness.
That happened.
Yeah.
But he lived in Cleveland, and he used to come over and see us when he was doing better. And Frank became a good friend of his. That was the son he never had, Frank. You know Uncle Frank.
Right. Was that the uncle that always drove the motorcycle, or
he had a
sports
red
car?
Convertible.
The red convertible.
Yes, he had a red convertible, and I got a few rides in it, but he and Frank used to go out for rides all the time. Of course, this was after the war, and there was plenty of gas.
So, did you know of the nuclear blast that happened in Japan when they happened?
Hiroshima?
Yeah.
Well, I saw it in the movies.
And did you know of the Holocaust, or no?
Not really when it was happening.
I don't think anyone knew the extent of what was happening until after the war, when they got into the concentration camps and realized what was happening. Even the people who lived right outside the walls of the concentration camps in the cities did not know what was happening in Germany. We went to the concentration camp in Dachau in Germany, and they were talking about how the people outside the wall of the concentration camp in the village had no idea until the Americans came and opened things up. It was a real shock for them. So, yeah, nobody knew.